The energy is real and it's spectacular. There's no denying the Braves were energized by the return of Ronald Acuña Jr. And with their first series win of the season in hand, it's time to hit the road against the Rangers and the Mets. This is Battery Power TV. Cory McCartney, along with Grant McCauley and Grant. It goes without saying that having one of the greatest talents in baseball back is a boost. But seeing Acuña back in action, I mean, it really makes it feel like the season is now finally getting started for the Braves.
Yeah, it really felt like something was missing there for that first 2.5, 3 weeks. We knew it was coming soon, but how soon is now, as the old saying goes, the old song goes. But getting Ronald Acuña Jr. back, plugging him back in, as we talked about in our special episode, our emergency episode, because it was a little bit unexpected to have him back so soon for the Cup Series. But getting him back means a lot to the Braves on the field, off the field, and in multiple ways on the field, not just what it does for the lineup, but also what it does for the outfield, what it does for the Braves on the base paths, and of course, what kind of energy he brings, as you touched on to start this show. That is what he offers. It's not just a five-tool player that comes back and brings all of those skills. It's somebody who affects the game in so many different ways. It energizes the team. It energizes the fan base. It energizes the lineup. And, of course, it just makes the team that much better. So this is what we've been waiting for. I know it might take a minute for him to get back up to speed or get back up to that Ronald Acuña Jr. next level, talent that he has, but I'm excited to see him work through it and get to it, and excited to see what kind of season he has in store after all of the hard work he has put in to get back.
So as we mentioned before, Acuña took the field for the first time. The Braves were 15th in runs, next to the last in the majors in outfield Fangraph WAR. With his arrival, you're obviously talking about a lineup now that is a top five of Acuña, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, and Ozzie Albies when they're all out there. The Angels 1 through 5, they have the major's best weighted run created plus at 166, the best OPS at 891. That group has Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, Jared Walsh, and Supernova Taylor Ward. The Yankees 1 through 5 has the most home runs with DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton, and Josh Donaldson. And then the Blue Jays have George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Matt Chapman, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. The Twins and Rays are among the leaders in most categories, and they're 1 through 5. I put this to you, Grant. The Braves are the only one of that group that has 1 through 5 who all have 30 home run seasons on their resume. Is this now the best 1 through 5 in baseball?
I think it has the chance to be, and now all they have to do is go out there and prove it, go out there and put up the numbers. And there were question marks about how it was going to come together. First was getting Ronald Acuña Jr. back. I think that was the biggest question. Then there was the question surrounding which Marcell Ozuna is going to show up. Is it the guy who struggled in 2021 and then, was gone because of off-the-field problems later on? Or is it going to be the guy that was the Triple Crown candidate of 2020? Small sample size, but two very different players. We knew Matt Olson was going to bring power. He's going to bring an on-base percentage and just overall be a net positive to the club, especially after losing someone who was such a stabilizing force in the top of the Braves order in Freddie Freeman. But then Austin Riley, is he going to be able to follow up his breakout season? So far, the early returns on Olson, on Riley, on Ozuna have all been positive. Now you get Acuña back. You've got Ozzie Albies in this mix. Depending on how things play out, is Travis d'Arnaud going to be a factor in that 5 spot every once in a while? Possibly. Could Ozzie be seeing some at-bats in the cleanup spot? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that you've got here as this lineup really comes into focus with Acuña back at the top. But you got a bunch of guys that are capable of putting up monster seasons, 30 home runs, 120 runs scored. In the case of somebody like Ronald, that's not out of the realm of possibility. And we saw that he does not mind taking some liberties on the base paths, and that was great to see. This is a 1 through 5, very different hitters, very different resumes, but a lot of excitement packed in to the top 5 spots in the Braves order now. I would put them up against just about anybody from this point going forward.
Yeah, I'm going to be definitive with it. I think they are. To me, with the Angels, you have to have some injury concerns with those guys. I think with the same thing with the Yankees. The Blue Jays, they may have the most upside when you think about those young guys that they have in that group. But I think with the Twins and Rays, to me, the Braves are the most complete of those 5. No pandering. This is now the best 1 through 5 in baseball. As good as the Braves look, though, 1 through 5, we're only expected to see it once during this 3-game series against the Rangers, which gets started Friday night. Acuña is resting in the opener, will play Saturday, and then is expected to set Sunday, with the Braves not wanting him to play in any day games after a night game. So good luck, though, in trying to keep him out of that lineup. The Mets are obviously to follow, Grant, and this kind of, to bring in a little bit of a football term, this kind of feels like a little bit of a trap series for the Braves. I mean, the Rangers have not gotten off to the strongest of starts. They're dead last in the National League West, a -9 run differential, 18th in WAR, 17th in homers. Corey Seager has hit well below league average. Marcus Semien has not yet hit a home run. He's got a 434 OPS. The pitching staff's been one of the league's worst. This feels like dangerous territory with the Mets series looming.
Yeah, it does a little bit, but this is one of those things where, and I think this is what Brian Snitker does probably better than just about any other manager the Braves have had since Bobby Cox. And the idea is win the day, win the series. And really, if you focus on winning these series and don't start, say, looking ahead to the Mets and thinking about, all right, we got this 4-game showdown looming with the top club in the division, we got to be able to go up there and have a good showing for ourselves. And there's really a focus on the here and now and the winning a particular game and then securing that series victory, which took the Braves 6 tries this year, which was a little bit quizzical, especially when you consider how bad the Reds are. The fact that the Nationals are probably on track for a 90-plus loss season themselves. And then, you face the Marlins, who are, I think, going to be a competitive club this year, especially with their pitching. Padres, Dodgers, goes without saying. So it wasn't like a pushover schedule where you just kind of wondered how the Braves kept losing to a bunch of sub-500 teams, but there were some early missed opportunities. So when you come to a team like the Rangers that is down right now, that hasn't gotten off to a hot start, I think that the biggest focus for the Braves is going to be more so internally. What kind of things are they going to be setting themselves up day after day to, get done and accomplished in that particular game? They're not going to spend a ton of time, I think, looking at Corey Seager's slow start or Marcus Semien's slow start and saying, all right, well, we don't have to worry about those guys anymore. About the time you start doing that is the time that you do find yourself in trouble, because we know that Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and several other Rangers players, and by the way, several players toward the bottom of the Braves lineup aren't going to hit like they have the first 3 weeks for the next 140 or so games. It's just going to even out. When can it start? Hopefully for the Braves, we saw their lineup begin to pick it up a little bit at the bottom. Really nice homestand for Dansby Swanson. I know we're not necessarily getting to him yet because we're kind of focused on Texas, but that's the kind of sign that I see as you roll into facing an American League club that was hoping to have its offense all fixed up and ready to roll and compete in the American League West. You want to have all of your guns, drawn, no pun intended, because we got the Rangers thing going on, but you want to have everything at its, height and most availability. You got limitations on Ronald, but some of the other guys in this lineup are going to have to continue to step up and do their thing. We'll see how it plays out, but I don't worry too much about the Braves overlooking an opponent in any series, whether regular season, postseason, or heck, even in spring training. I don't think they look too far ahead.
I will bring up Swanson this way. It's worth noting that the 2020 NLCS was, of course, played in Globe Life Field. And Ozzie Albies had a 959 OPS in that series, Ozuna 874, and Dansby Swanson 828. So they've had success in that ballpark. And there's nobody on this roster who's had more success against the AL West than Matt Olson, who, of course, came from it. He has an 896 OPS against Garrett Richards, Dane Dunning 750, Taylor Hearn 821. Those are the pitchers that the Rangers will roll out. In all, he has a 954 OPS against Rangers pitching in all. So I would expect him to absolutely rake. The Braves are going to start Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder, and then there's the always dangerous TBD in the final. Mm-hmm. That is really interesting because that would be Max Fried's day, Grant. But if you give him another day's rest, he gets to start for that series opener against the Mets in what could be a really fun 4-game set.
Yeah, and it's going to be that first showdown. You want to make that first impression where you're going into enemy territory. At the very least, you want to come out of there with a split, and it's 4 games in 3 days. This isn't like you get to go in and kind of get comfortable and kick your feet up for a little while, because that doubleheader really kind of throws things on its ear. I would expect that as you ease Ronald Acuña Jr. in this weekend, and maybe he doesn't play on Friday night, maybe he doesn't play on Sunday, I don't know that necessarily does him a lot of favors, because I'd like to see some consistency of daily and regular at bats to get him back up to speed. But, regardless of what the plan is at the outset, these things are fluid. They can change. So it's not written in stone. We didn't write May 6th in stone, and it's a very good thing, because we would have had to go buy an all new stone to continue writing on here, whether it was handed down from the top of the mountain or whatever. But I really think that this Mets series is going to be a little bit of a measuring stick for the Braves, because they do now have Ronald. If they didn't have him, I would have looked at it and said, all right, well, go in and do the absolute best you can. But with him back in there, that changes the complexion of this. It's one of the many things that I think adds a little bit to the Braves. But you got to get Charlie Morton going. Ian Anderson kind of has to even some things out. He'll have the first test in Texas to see if he can, start to show some consistency, some command, and get himself on a nice roll again. Love what we've seen from Max Fried. Love what we've seen from Kyle Wright. Kyle's next start is going to be the biggest test of the year. It's going to be against the New York Mets, and he's coming off, I think, a start that told me more about Kyle Wright than the first three did when it seemed like he had everything going. It wasn't all working for him in the finale against the Chicago Cubs, but he dug down, kind of really got with Travis d'Arnaud and was able to huddle and figure out ways to get through that. And with most of his arsenal not necessarily doing exactly what he wanted to do, he pitched 7 innings of 1-run ball, and that run didn't even score thanks to a hit. It was just because a rundown didn't happen fast enough, and he struck out 8 more batters. I mean, this is a guy that's emerged, and hopefully this is going to just be more of the same from Kyle Wright moving forward. I think he's unlocked something really, really special. So he's the guy I'm looking at in this Mets series to get a big test against a divisional opponent and see if he can rise to the challenge. You've got Max Fried lined up to start that opener. We'll see which Charlie Morton we get when it comes to that. But, you're throwing at least 2 of your best starters at the Mets that are really kind of, I think, feeling themselves the last few starts and in a good place heading into a big series like that.
Yeah, on the topic of Kyle Wright, a piece I had this week on Battery Power website, you can check it out. Kyle and I kind of went into a little bit on his transition into this version of him that everyone's been waiting to see as the former number 5 overall pick. These Mets, by the way, I mean, this has been everything that everyone thought they could be. Yep. It's the major's best lineup in terms of Fangraph WAR. They're second in weighted run created plus. The starters, despite not having Jacob deGrom, are first in WAR, third in ERA. And you mentioned, I mean, the Braves are going to be rolling out potentially their top 4 starters in this one. To me, the Acuña thing is going to be really interesting to watch in this because, if he plays Monday at Citi Field, he could come back and play in the second game of that doubleheader on Tuesday. But with a day game on Wednesday, we may only see him play twice in this series. So, obviously with the DH, that could be up, for debate. And maybe he does end up, seeing some ABs in all 4 games. But, I don't know that you want to go into it with 100% saying this is the Ronald Acuña Jr. game plan. But, I mean, this Mets lineup is rolling. Francisco Lindor looks like Cleveland Lindor. Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, Starling Marte, all those guys they brought in, they're all hitting above league average. I mean, this figures to be an absolute ton of fun. So make sure, I think everything you wanted this matchup to be early on, we're absolutely going to see it.
I believe so. I mean, at the very least, this is the first taste that you're going to get of what you are facing this year. Sure, there's going to be, 15 more meetings after this as far as divisional play is concerned. These 2 clubs are just getting warmed up. There's a lot of season left to go. I don't think you can look at this series and draw any conclusions either way. If you get a sweep, that would be superb. If you get swept, well, that's not what you wanted, but you're just going to have to turn your attention right back inward and get things done and continue to win as many series as you can. I don't necessarily think it's going to go one way or the other like that. I think these are 2 clubs that are going to battle tooth and nail throughout the season. But this first impression that you get to make, it's nice to have Acuña back in there. It's nice to have some players who are off to good starts, a couple of pitchers who are, I think you feel confident about whoever they've got to face, that they're going to give you a great chance to win on that particular day. But I would like to think that Ronald's more than just a figurehead at the top of the Braves lineup. And I say that with all due respect to trying to manage his workload, but I don't know that, again, you want to set this thing in stone and say, all right, he's only playing every other day. He's not playing on travel days. He's not playing on day games. To say that he's not DHing, I understand maybe not running him out there in right field every single night. That makes complete sense to me. But I think we're going to see this plan start to evolve along. Maybe this weekend, that is the plan. The Mets series, I'd be surprised if he only plays a couple of those 4 games. But stranger things have happened. And as of a week ago, there was a chance that he wouldn't play any of the 4 games against the Mets. So maybe you just have to be happy with what you get in some respects.
Well, if you're not already, hit that subscribe button on the Battery Power YouTube channel. Make sure you turn on those notifications. That way, each and every time that we drop a new episode, you get a fancy little alert and you can check everything that we do out. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McCauley, and we'll see you in next time, Braves Country.